The means to the end sometimes we have to do what is painful to achieve a level of success and accomplishment. There is a statement, no pain, no gain. And that means that there's a time in our life where we may have to go to school to be more valuable. There's a time in our life where we may have to learn something and use our time at night when we're really tired to learn something. There's a time that we may have to go through pain and suffering to create this value. So the first question to ask is, where are you? From Wealth Creators USA, this is From Worry to Wealth, the podcast that shatters the myths and mystique surrounding wealth creation. As students, our schools and universities often neglect the crucial education on the core financial principles. I'm Ben Lyons. I'm a business owner, investor, entrepreneur, and author, and I'm joined by my business partner, Alex Fink. And together, we're here to inspire your journey towards improving your financial self. In a world buzzing with advice on the behaviors and mindset to become wealthy, we'll share proven processes tried and tested by our network of successful collaborators. So get ready to move past worry and move towards wealth and your improved financial self. Hey, welcome back to this episode of From Worry to Wealth. I'm excited. You know why I'm excited? I think I said egg salad.
Yeah, egg salad is pretty exciting, but I'd like to hear even more about your excitement today.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm with my esteemed colleague.
Right.
I'm not sure what you got steam rolling off of you.
Produce
That's
a
why
lot
you're
of heat.
esteemed.
I produce a lot of heat. Yeah, for sure.
That's right.
Yes.
My esteemed colleague here in this podcast, Alex Fink. Nice hat.
Thank you.
Just wearing that hat again.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come next time with a hat. As you know, we talk about From Worry to Wealth, which is really an exciting process-driven approach to how wealth is created.
Indeed.
This is one of our favorite topics.
It is. We love it.
And I think in this episode, we're going to cover a lot of kind of case studies and stories and a lot of the questions we get asked. I know you get asked a lot of questions, right? A lot of questions come to you, as do I over the years. And, for reference, we've had a lot of people work for us. And what has been always very fascinating to me is how little real world financial knowledge people actually get in formal education. They don't get it at home from their families. They don't get it in class. Who is going to teach people how to go from worry to wealth? And let's cover some of these questions that are most common. For me, I tell a story about when I ran a company years ago. I had a bookshelf that had 5 shelves on it. And the top shelf had the book Think and Grow Rich. The second shelf had the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. The third shelf had The Richest Man in Babylon. And then the fourth shelf had The Magic of Thinking Big. And the fifth shelf had a variety of books. And when you started to work for me, I would give you a book and I would say, here's $100 if you read the book.
If you read the book, yeah.
Got to come back and read the book and go over the book with me.
Right.
And I would do this with everybody. Alex, how many people do you think over the years actually came back to collect their $100?
I would, now that I know a little bit more, so I've got a little inside track, very few, unfortunately, right? Is
very
that correct?
Few.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I often tell this story, and I'll turn it over to our questions and answers in a second, but I just want to kind of start this episode with, the book you don't read won't help, the knowledge you don't get won't help, and the course you don't take won't help. So it's fascinating. But when my wife had twins, we had a nanny. And she was, for 12 years, she was a full-time nanny. And when she stopped working for us, her 19-year-old son called us up one day, called me and said, hey, Mr. Ben, you're the most successful guy I know. What can I do? And I said, well, I'm going to overnight you a book. Read it. You read it, I'll give you $100. Never heard from him. 4 months later, he calls back. Same old question. I said, Brian, did you get the book? He said, yeah. I said, did you read it? He said, nope. I said, I'm going to give you $500. Read the book, because this book is the most important starting point of all of this. Never heard from him again. What's our moral of the story, Alex?
Well, it's interesting because the moral of the story is what you don't do will not help you, right?
That's right.
Right. Whether it's getting knowledge or talking to somebody, but what's interesting is how different that is from the start of your career, right? Where you reached out and you seeked opportunities and you applied the principles that you learned, and I think that's kind of important, right? If you're going to build success, is
Oh, actually taking action on something.
well,
is-
it certainly helps. I think it certainly helps. But it's interesting that there are so many people that seem to indicate that they want to be more successful or that they want certain knowledge and that they're willing to do certain things. But the percentage of those people that don't do anything is a larger percentage than I think we'd like to see. Right.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. It's been fascinating all my life. I have a saying: "Don't send your duck to Eagle School."
Right.
Right? We've talked about that. Don't send your duck to Eagle School, and it's hopefully none of our viewers are ducks. They're all eagles, and they want to learn and put into
Right.
practice what they
Right.
want.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to some questions, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, so one of the most common questions I get really is, well, how do I get to this place of wealth? And we define wealth in the book, really statistically speaking, as somebody that achieves a certain level of net worth. I'm not going to define wealth for everybody that's watching, because some people wealth is $100 million, and some people wealth is $1 million. But really, in the wealth creation formula, the first question I ask is, well, what is your net worth and what is your investable income? Because we're trying to solve for variables A and B.
Correct.
And most people say to me, well, how do you expect me to understand the acquisition of assets if I live paycheck to paycheck? So how do I solve that problem? I'm living paycheck to paycheck, which means that most people really have to solve variable A, how to outrun their expenses. So what do you think about that? That most people, when we're talking about the wealth creation formula, not all people, but I would say more often than not, most people have said, I need to solve variable A. What do you make of it?
I think it makes sense, right? I think that folks often have opportunities that limit their disposable income and need vehicles to achieve a level of income that allows them to start investing in assets. It makes sense to me.
So you use the word vehicle, which is really the key word there. Often people go to work trading their time for money, but they're on the wrong vehicle. So what advice would you give somebody? I know the advice that I'd give somebody, but if you see somebody on the wrong vehicle, how would you approach that?
I think the first thing that I would do is see if they're willing to make a change, right? Because some people live in the comfort of their own situation and aren't willing to step out. But I think it's pretty easy to, if you have a level of income and you want that income to increase, and you don't have a way to do it within the confines of your situation, I think you have to look at either a different vehicle, right, or a second job or any other way to make income. And there's a way to make income by adding a second piece, right? So you can have the stability of working within the confines of your existing situation, but you can also, maybe it's getting a real estate license, or maybe it's, getting into some other, sales effort, or maybe it's a product that you find that you really like. It could start with the interests of the person. What are you interested in? Think about a way to monetize that interest. But it could be as simple as getting educated and getting trained on another vehicle and going out and leveraging that vehicle. And you don't, in my mind, you don't have to limit your stability, meaning you can keep your stable job and still do things to produce additional income.
Yeah. We talk about in the variable A solution in the course From Worry to Wealth. there's a worksheet and a path that says your way to 20K, and also something called the money positioning system. And really the key to anybody that's asking the question, that's watching this or listening to this about solving variable A, really should start with somebody's core competency. I know what my core competency is, and boy, if I, for example, can you imagine me in IT? If I tried to get into the IT business, I would fail.
Yeah.
Not very good at IT.
Well, you did microwave your phone that one time.
I did.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
think
good
that
point.
actually helps.
That
Yeah.
counts as
I
IT?
think well, it's debatable. Yeah.
That's true. Thanks for sharing
You're
that
welcome.
with everybody watching this. But for those watching, I did put my phone in the microwave and turn it on. I thought it was a cup of coffee for reference. I just want to be clear. I thought it was a cup of coffee.
And I believe you.
But I tried to talk to my cup of coffee.
Right.
And yeah,
doesn't work very well.
We all have a visual of that. Thank you for that memory.
You're welcome.
But you know, for me, it's having people evaluate what their core competency is and asking the question: can somebody leverage their core competency in such a way that it's scalable? So let's use some examples of real life. We talked in previous episodes about this nurse who came to me. She was living paycheck to paycheck, had a few kids, and I was in the middle of writing this book, and I said, well, if your area of expertise is in nursing, how do you work as a nurse? And she said, well, I'm an independent contractor, and I contract out for different nurses. I said, how many of you are there out there like that? She said, a whole lot. And I said, well, do the hospitals and the hospices and the assisted living, do they all contract other nurses? She said, yeah. I said, so why don't you just leverage that, you know, and staff those places and get an override? And you know, that's an example of how somebody asks how to leverage with variable A.
It's a great way of looking at it, because that person that doesn't even know that staffing situation exists has tacit knowledge of the industry and a unique perspective that likely would, for the right person, make them more successful in that space than somebody that's got a staffing agency and doesn't understand the plight of the individuals working in that system. So by looking at it a different way and leveraging that knowledge, as you said, that's a really great example of building additional disposable income.
Often what I have found is that people who have an area of expertise, when they start looking at, and I'm talking to the people that are living paycheck to paycheck, that say, well, how do I get to this place of wealth? They start looking outside of their own area of core competency for the solutions. And we have to keep bringing them back in to say, well, wait a minute, you're not leveraging your own core skill.
Yeah.
And
seems the easiest way to do it.
That's where you should start.
Yeah.
And there's a million examples. There was a conversation recently with a guy who I've known for a while. You may know this gentleman. And, you know, I asked him, you know, he was looking at this strategy, different strategies, really of asset acquisitions. And he's in pursuit of creating wealth for his family. And I said, well, what's your area of competency? And he told me it was in the construction field. And I said, well, how much did you bill last year? And it was a very modest number. I said, dude, why are you out there looking at all these other strategies? If you could 10 times the revenue.
Yeah, develop what you got, right.
Just take what you're already skilled at and grow that.
Right.
Leverage other people to grow that. Leverage other strategies. Why are you looking at 7 other different places outside of your core competency? You got to learn something new.
Right.
So these are examples of how people can solve variable A. Are they on the right vehicle in their area of core competency? And what are the applications of scalability? What do you think about that approach?
It makes perfect sense. If you have somebody that's a laborer and they've got that skill, they could potentially get licensed, hire other laborers, and leverage that. I think it applies mostly universally to all skill sets.
Yeah, I agree. So back to other questions that we get asked. I think for me, we're in a day, a time, a period where social media and technology play a big part. And I like to talk about, well, how many times did this book have to be written?
One time.
One time. And you know what happens every single month? I get a royalty check every month.
Right.
Not a lot of money. It's a little money.
Yeah.
But every month I'm getting a check from somebody buying this book. Isn't that pretty cool?
It's very cool. Yeah.
So if we go out there on social media and we create content, and that can be leveraged forever, that is a great solution to solving that problem. So what are more questions that we get asked, common questions? What comes to your mind?
I think so we get a lot of questions around real estate and when to buy, right? So we get that question a lot.
And what advice do you give people when they ask you the question about when to buy real estate? What type of real estate? Expand that whole question.
Yeah, I think for me, I think understanding their situation is key to that, right? What can they afford? Are they in a position to even buy anything? But I typically let them know that my history has been buying at a discount, right? So to the extent I can coach them through how to buy at a discount and create value in that asset using other people's money, that's generally the advice that I give them. And I think you can find that. So there's some people say, hey, wait to buy, don't buy until this time. There are always deals out there, and there's always ways to get into real estate. There's always ways to get into real estate for a discount. And so I think that's generally my advice. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I always tell people, unless you're a trader, not in the sense of a treason.
Yeah,
trader,
right.
But unless you're a trader, a stock trader,
Right,
a commodities trader, a real estate trader. Often people say, I'm a real estate investor. And when I find out that they're in the flipping business, I say, you're not a real estate investor. You're trading your time for money. You're a real estate trader.
right.
And so my advice to these people is, are you using real estate for income or using it to build net worth? And I find that most people use real estate incorrectly. They use it as an idea of income. And it really, in my view, is when you acquire assets, it should be a net worth driver. There should be other solutions for income.
Right.
And that's why there's variable A, that is an income strategy, and variable B, which is an asset acquisition strategy. And, the questions I get asked about the creation of wealth, how do you create wealth? If that question of how to create wealth was asked to 100 wealthy people, you'd probably get 100 different answers.
For sure.
For me, you're going to get the same formulate answer, different approach.
Well, if we use that example that I used, right, and somebody acquires real estate at a discount, creates the value in the real estate, and then sells it, that's they're getting more income. But if they leverage that asset once it's stabilized to generate income to pay back the money that's borrowed, you can use the equity in that property to get another asset. So you're then not using that income for yourself.
Yep.
You're using that income to pay back the leverage that you have on the asset, and using the asset's value to get another asset, and you're creating value there. So that's an important distinction, right?
Yes, but you would not use real estate buy, sell,
Correct.
even if you get it at a discount.
Correct.
Because
Right.
you go through all this energy to
For
acquire
sure.
the asset.
Well, that's the point, right?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But-
Use the asset rather than to take the income off the table. Use the asset to get another asset.
Right. So we both support the idea that real
sure.
estate should be used to build net worth and to leverage for other assets. So thinking about other questions we get asked all the time, I would say, what I get asked, what should I know and learn? For me, I would say just whatever area of your core competency, are you in the top 1% in that area? Are you the expert in that area? And often, again, people look outside of what they're doing for income for this solution. And let's just say they're at the 50 percentile of income opportunity in a specific area. I mean, pick a field. What do you want to say? IT?
IT, yeah. Let's use IT.
If you look at the spectrum of income of IT people, I don't know what the spectrum is because I'm not an IT guy, but if one of our students was at the 50 or 60 percentile, I would say, well, why aren't you at the 100%?
Right.
Have you invested enough in yourself? People are looking out there to invest as opposed to inside.
Yeah.
Within
Maybe it's
them.
getting another certification. Maybe it's learning a new skill within the trade. Maybe it's refining a skill. Yeah. Thinking through other questions that people ask. A lot of times, I think you would agree, it's asking about backgrounds, right? How did you get to where you are? And oftentimes, we're not sure if that's just a healthy curiosity or if it's somebody actually trying to learn something, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's problematic about that potentially is that everyone's path to wealth, our system allows that path to be in whatever manner is most efficient for that individual or most tailored to that individual. Whereas if somebody asks, how did you get here? That's not really the right question, right? The right question might be, what are the core principles that you leverage to gain your wealth, which is what we're teaching. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because how you got to where you are may not fit with my
For sure.
personality.
Maybe I'm
May
an
not-
IT person, right?
Maybe you're an IT person.
Yeah. Or I'm a salesperson. This is an engineer I'm talking to, right?
That's exactly
for
right.
sure. So I think what's nice about the system that we have is it allows for people's strengths and their backgrounds, and allows the utilization of a system to maximize their potential within the constraints of their environment,
Yeah.
which is great. So oftentimes we get some of the wrong questions from individuals, right? People ask questions and those are the wrong questions. What are the right questions in your mind for people to ask when they're looking to build wealth?
Yeah, I think fundamentally we're trying to solve for taking somebody from where they are to where they want to be. And the key questions are really, what are their core competencies and what should their approach be to the creation of wealth? And once we ask them more questions about what they're doing to drive income, where they've already acquired assets, if any, and really their element of time, we can then help them formulate a plan. Should they be approaching income as their driver for the contributor to wealth? Because there are people that make 60 grand a year and are barely getting by, but you and I could outline for them through this formula of ours an approach to make 600,000 a year. And at 600,000 a year, they have different choices.
For sure.
Approaching assets may be their only chance to wealth.
Right.
Some people just may be in a situation where we can't solve for scalability of income. There's just no way, given their situation, there may be a single parent with 4 children and the time element isn't there. And there's just no way to really easily solve for that. So
is the right question, if I'm interested in building wealth, can you analyze my situation and provide advice that would be tailored to my strengths that would allow me to get to this point? Is that more of the right question in your mind?
yes, it has to start with where is somebody and are they on the right vehicle based on a core competency? Because if somebody is on the wrong vehicle and they're incongruent with their core competency, if we talk about scalability, it'll never happen.
Right.
So one of the questions to ask is, am I on the right vehicle? Remember, we're first trying to solve variable A. And variable A is the ability to create predictable, reliable, and scalable income. So if you're on the wrong vehicle that's incongruent with your core competencies, all the advice in the world isn't going to help.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for those individuals that are in a field or a position where it's not their nature, it's not their desire, there's nothing enjoyable about it, for those individuals, what would your advice be? Hearing that, would it be okay if there was a ton of money, coming in that field, and they could use that money to maybe move into another field, or how would you respond to that scenario?
The means to the end sometimes we have to do what is painful to achieve a level of success and accomplishment. There is a statement, no pain, no gain. And that means that there's a time in our life where we may have to go to school to be more valuable. There's a time in our life where we may have to learn something and use our time at night when we're really tired to learn something. There's a time that we may have to go through pain and suffering to create this value. And the first thing we really have to do is go through our money positioning system and our Your Way to 20K analysis. So the first question to ask is, where are you? And what should be the path that you should take? Because in the wealth creation formula, there are many people that really should rely on asset acquisition as their strategy to wealth for the next 20 years. It won't even be a discussion about income because there's no need for it. And in other areas and other discussions, people should be saying, well, what do I do? Because everybody fundamentally says, I want a better financial life. And we're saying, well, do you have a better financial life because your income goes up by 10 times? Or is it a better financial life because over the next 10 years you acquire $10 million of assets that become paid off?
Right.
Which path creates that better life? And the fundamental question is it an income approach or is it an asset approach? Then that's
the right question.
And then the question below that is, what's the strategy based on the answer to that question?
So if people want to send their questions in, info@wealthcreatorsusa.com.
I'm glad you remembered.
Right.
What is it again?
Info@wealthcreatorsusa.com. Is that correct?
Oh, I think so. I
Okay.
think so. See, Alex is much younger than me, so his memory is much better than mine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It
he
fades.
remembers these sort of things.
Yeah. It fades over time. Yeah.
Well, don't forget, I'm 10 years older than
That's
you.
right.
And
That's right.
In dog years, I think that's 100.
It's a lot. It's a lot of
It is
years,
a lot,
for
right.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. All right. So any other words of wisdom for our viewers?
Send in your questions and let us answer them for you, and we're happy to do it.
Okay.